Welcome to the Butterfly Effect. I'm Garrett Horner. This is stage 19 of the 24 Tour de France, brought to you by Ketone 8. KE4 is what the pros love to drink here at the Tour de France. Remco Evenepoel sitting top 3 here on the podium right now at the 24 Tour de France. He loves to drink it. If you want to drink it and want to save 15% on your next order of Ketone 8, make sure you use the code BUTTERFLY. Now let's get into today's mountainous stage here. There's only 2 left at the Tour de France this morning for stage 19 of the 24 Tour de France, and it's a short stage, 145 kilometers. We'll call it 90 miles in length, but they got 3 categorized climb. Col de Vars, that one starts off pretty early at 120 kilometers to go. This one's a monster of a climb. We're talking 20 plus kilometers. Then you go into the second climb. This one's a monster too. Bonet, when they get into the Bonet, this one's over 20 kilometers. It's 23 kilometers. And we're talking about 7% average. We get into the last and final climb, 16 kilometers long. It's Isola 2000. This climb at 16 kilometers long at about 7%. So Isola 2000 is going to finish out this stage 19 of the Tour de France with a summit finish. That means when the cameras come on, there's going to be a ton of action. And this is my man, Victor Campenaerts. Lotto Destiny's throwing an attack. He won yesterday, so you know I had to call him out today because he's throwing in the first attack. Now, my man's just putting on a show because he loves to get his mug up there in the face. But it starts all the action, and it starts blowing off the chart as the road's going slightly uphill from kilometer 0, basically. Right away, when you start seeing the groups go and you see Visma Lease bikes with Laporte up there, Jorgensen's up there, and you start looking further back and UAE team members have Soler on the front, all right, you already know the MO. We're less than a kilometer into the race, and you already know how this race is going to unfold. If you don't know, I'm going to tell you for sure, because this is the butterfly effect. But if we back up the film to yesterday's stage 18, in the interview from Tadej Pogačar, he was saying how he thought this could be the queen stage here of the 24 Tour de France. Now, that was a big-time little clue right there of what UAE was thinking about doing on today's stage. But when we get live back into the race and you see that there's 3 Visma Lease bike riders up the front, because they got Wilco Kelderman, Jorgensen, and Laporte, and they're all on the front pulling like crazy. Behind, you see Soler from UAE team members pulling like crazy, and the peloton's getting strung out all over the place. So you know what? What does this tell you? This tells you that UAE team members, Tadej Pogačar, wants to win today's stage 19 of the Tour de France. If you're seeing it anything differently than that, you must have been watching NBC Peacock with Bob Roll calling it live, who doesn't know what's going on. Now, we go up to the front. We see that the 20 guys, give or take, up there with Visma Lease bike pulling like crazy. The cameras come back. EF Education's on the front. They got 3 riders on the front. It's the U.S. Pro Champion. Sean Quinn's up there. Rui Costa's up there, the Portuguese rider that used to be ex-Road World Champion, but he's Portuguese national champion right now, so he's got the colored jersey on there from his nationality. Then we look, it's Richard Carapaz with EF Education pulling full gas, and they have one rider in the front, Nielsen Palace up there, the American rider. He's been having kind of a hard 24 Tour de France, but he's always doing his job in the early stages here for EF Education. He's represented in the front group of 20. They're pulling like crazy with Visma Lease bike up there. And when we look back, EF Education is doing a solid job as we're coming into about 22 kilometers to go through the town. We're going to start the first KOM at 120 kilometers. Now they're coming in at 122. And as they're coming through the town, bam, Richard Carapaz throws in attack. He's got the Colombian Egan Bernal from Ineos on his team. He won the Tour de France in 2019. And when we look further back, well, the third rider there, that's Romain Bardet. Now, we got Carapaz on the front going full gas. We got Ineos there, Egan Bernal latched on Bardet, but neither of those 2 riders are taking a pull because Carapaz is doing big-time work. We look at the back of that group of what I called about 20 riders. Christophe Laporte's coming off. Chris Jules Jensen from Jaco Lula's coming off. And as Carapaz is flying past Laporte there, he's going solid speed with Egan Bernal on his wheel. Laporte's going to look over his shoulder. When the cameras flip back, we see it's Simon Yates right now flying across for Jaco Lula. Now we go back to the peloton. They're pulling full gas. The time distance is only about 30 seconds to the front group up there. So Carapaz is throwing in a huge acceleration, going past all the drop riders, and Simon Yates is doing the same thing from the back. Now we'll see Nielsen Palace. He's coming back from EF Education. He's going to grab his teammate, Richard Carapaz. We're going to see Chris Jules Jensen, who was getting dropped. He's going to grab his teammate, Simon Yates, and they're starting to pull. When I'm sitting on the Chesterfield and I'm looking up at this front group of about 7 riders up there with Wilco Kelderman and Jorgensen pulling like crazy from Visma Lease bike, all I'm thinking is, you guys are wasting a ton of time. The only reason you want to be up in this front group at all has to do with KOM points. Richard Carapaz and Palace right now pulling on the front, where we see Jaco Alula there. Chris Jules Jensen got Simon Yates on the back of that group, and now he's hosing them off. These guys are all knuckleheads unless you're EF Education or riders that are going for KOM points, because UAE team members are going full gas back there. I mean, they're driving it. They're not letting the time gap go out to much time at all to this group of 7 riders at the front who are being chased, like I said, from EF Education and Jaco Alula. Then Carapaz starts his acceleration from that small chase group, trying to go up to the group of 7 up there, because we'll see Palace just blew. Palace blew so hard, he's zigzagging on the course there. He's got a zigzag just to keep his bike so he's not falling over. But Simon Yates is missing the split there to Carapaz, as Carapaz has got some form. Want to stage here at the Tour de France, and he's still got some of those legs left as he's bridging through and going through all the dropped riders, and he was going to go up to the top of that group of 7. He's going to latch on. Simon Yates is back there too, but it's going to take him a little bit longer to get up to that group of 7. Now we got 9 riders in the front group. Those 9 riders, like I said, Jorgensen, Wilco Kelderman, Carapaz is up there, Elan Van Wilder's there, Christian Rodriguez from a Samsics there, Oscar Only from DSM's there, Nicholas Prudhomme's there from AG2R, and Jai Henley from Bora Hansgrohe. That puts 9 riders in the front group. Once they reach to the top of the KOM, Carapaz throws in an attack, so he gets maximum points. That means for sure he's looking for KOM jersey here at the Tour de France. And we got just today and tomorrow's race that's going to have some multiple climbs on back-to-back mountain stages here, the 24 Tour de France. So Carapaz grabs as much points as he can. They're dropping down the backside. We look at the peloton. It got reduced the whole time coming up this climb. Niels Paulet's on the front. UAE team members are down to 6 riders. They only lost 1 rider early here, and that's Tim Wellens. But with Niels Paulet pulling on the front, and with Sivakov close by, and Soler always close by, Tadej Pogacar's got teammates all wrapped around him. We come into the second category climb here at Bonet. When they start this climb, guys, 23 kilometers long. We got Niels Paulet on the front. We look up at the riders up front there, and we start seeing Oscar Only coming out the back. Follows shortly behind Oscar, it's going to be Nicolas Prudhomme coming out the back. Then Elan Van Wilder's dropping out the back. Now we got 6 riders at the front now trying to lead the peloton for chasing behind from UAE team members, but the gap is always at about 3.5 minutes right now to this group of 6. It'll start extending out to about 4 minutes, but Niels Paulet's still on the front. Then we start seeing Visma leads the bike, the Super Domestiques that were looking after Jonas Vingegaard, while he had 2 of his teammates in the front. They're starting to come out the back too. Bart Lemon, he's coming out the back. Then we're going to see Jan Tratnik and Thijs Benoot's coming out the back near the top of this climb, while Niels Paulet's still on the front, and it's down to about 35 riders. Niels Paulet's doing a solid job holding the front group of 6 with Jorgensen and Wilco Kelderman and Carapaz working on the front. The other 3 riders, they're all sitting on. Christian Rodriguez not taking a pull. Jai Hindley's not taking a pull up there, and Simon Yates isn't taking a pull either from Jaco Alula. With 3 riders working and 3 sitting on, you know Carapaz work because he wants KOM points. Visma leads the bike's working because this was their plan to try to win today's stage. But remember, they always have Jonas Vingegaard in the back too, so they got a plan A and a plan B. When I'm sitting on the Chesterfield, okay, I don't like plan A because I don't think you could win the stage when UAE team members are pulling full gas back there with Niels Paulet. But with about 9 kilometers to go in the second category climb, Niels Paulet's going to pull off, and we'll see him get a little nod there from Tadej Pogačar. Next up on line is Sivakov. Sivakov starts driving the front of the group, and he starts bringing a little time down from the group of 6 up front, with Jorgensen doing a lot of the work and Carapaz doing his work from EF Education. As we got 3 riders up there and Sivakov going full gas in the back, he's holding the group up front to a tight margin of just about 4 minutes. Now we get up to the KOM. It's Richard Carapaz going over the top at 3.5 minutes on the UAE train below. Now we start seeing Soler getting on the front there with Sivakov just a little bit near the top with about 1.5 kilometers to go. Sivakov's getting some help from Soler. They go over the top of the climb, going in full flight. And that means we got 1 descent and 1 climb to go into for stage 19 here. We start looking at the valley. Sivakov's going full gas. Soler's on the front too. We're coming under 20 kilometers to go. And as the 6 riders come into the last and final climb here, the 24 Tour de France stage 19, they got about a 4-minute gap on the peloton behind. As the peloton reaches the beginning of this final climb here, we see Soler's on the front. Then we see the camera find Sivakov, who's dropping off early, but did magnificent work here for UAE team members to control the group up front of 6 riders. Now Sivakov's come off. Now we see Soler, like I said, on the front. He's driving at full gas. We go up to the group of 6. Well, we got guys coming out the back. It's Christian Rodriguez, our KSM6, the first casualty right now on stage 19, the last climb, as the Arkea rider's having some bad moments. He's coming out the back. Shortly after him, it's Jai Hindley coming out the back from Red Bull, Bora Hansgrohe. Now we got 4 riders in the front. Carapaz was doing some work. We saw, if I back the film up, all 6 riders were doing a little bit of work coming through the valley. But like I said, with 2 riders getting dropped, with Jorgensen and now with Wilco Kelderman riding the front, Jorgensen's going to hang around to about 13 kilometers to go. And then the American rider for Visma Lease bike throws in his attack because the time is now starting to get down to about 3.5 minutes. So Jorgensen throws in an acceleration. Once he gets the acceleration, Carapaz is going to start getting the gap on Simon Yates once we get a little bit further up the climb. We look back down at the peloton, see what's happening. Well, Soler starting to come off after about 2-3 kilometers of pulling. Now it's time for Adam Yates to get on the front. With Adam Yates getting on the front, we start seeing casualties from the top 10 of the general classification. And the first rider to come out the back, that's Ciccone from Lidl Trek, followed shortly by Carlos Rodriguez right up there. Carlos Rodriguez sitting 6th on the general classification. And we start looking a little bit further as Carlos Rodriguez is starting to struggle. We see the gap open up. Then we start seeing some more casualties as Derek G is the next rider in the top 10 general classification that starts stretching out the back. We're going up front. Jorgensen's going solo, starting to extend the gap. We look further down. Simon Yates has caught back up to Carapaz, and now Simon Yates is throwing in an attack on Richard Carapaz from EF Education. We look further back down. Tadej Pogačar, he's brewing some magic right now because we're coming into about 8.7 kilometers to go, plus about that 3 minutes up front there that Jorgensen has on Tadej Pogačar. So Tadej Pogačar throws in acceleration at 8.7 kilometers to go because he knows he's got some time to make up on Jorgensen. As he throws in the acceleration, he gets a gap. Remco Evenepoel's chasing behind. We see that Jonas Vingegaard's locked on the Remco Evenepoel's wheel. They're getting a gap from the other GC guys here, what's left of them in the top 10 classification anyways, as they can't quite close the gap to Tadej Pogačar. Tadej Pogačar's starting to extend the gap. He knows he's got a shot at winning today's stage, but he's got a big problem because Jorgensen's still up the road. With Tadej Pogačar flying straight up to the back wheel there of our Samsic, he's starting to catch the back end of the original group of 6 that started this climb. He's going to catch our Samsic. Next up on the road is going to be Red Bull Bora Hansgrohe's Jai Hindley. As Jai Hindley's getting caught, well, we know Tadej Pogačar's flying up the road, and then we start looking further back. Well, we're about 2 kilometers after the attack there from Tadej Pogačar, and Remco Evenepoel's getting caught by Mikel Landa. Mikel Landa's there, and Almeida's there from UAE team members. So Mikel Landa comes to the front because Remco Evenepoel's his teammate. As he's starting to pull there, he's helping Remco Evenepoel. Jorgensen's still flying up the road. Tadej Pogačar's catching the next riders as it's Richard Carapaz. He's flying straight through him, and the gap's down to about 40 seconds. If we go up front, we start looking at Jorgensen. When we start seeing he's got no water bottles on his bike, I thought, wow, what's going on? We're deep into this race. Maybe he just tossed it earlier. No, I didn't pay attention. If I go all the way back 5 kilometers, when it was a minute gap there to Jorgensen and to Tadej Pogačar, he had no bottles. I back you up to 9 kilometers, he had no bottles. I back you up to 10, 11, 12. There's no bottles on the U.S. American rider from Visma Lease bike's bike. That means when we're going all the way back to about 13 kilometers, 14 kilometers before his original attack, that was the last time I saw bottles and saw him reaching in his back pocket there at about 14K to go. We go up here to 3 kilometers to go. The gap's getting down to about 22, 25 seconds, and Tadej Pogačar now is flying up there to the last rider behind Jorgensen. As we know, that's Simon Yates. He sees Simon Yates, catches up to Simon Yates. Simon Yates tries to hold on to the back wheel of Tadej Pogačar, the flying Slovenian from UAE team members, holds on for about 400 meters max. I could probably call it 3. But then Simon Yates blows and Tadej Pogačar's going solo as we're coming under 2 kilometers to go. Tadej Pogačar has Jorgensen in his sight. We go further back down and we start looking to see what was happening back there between Remco Evenepoel and Jonas Vingegaard. Well, they're losing about 1 minute and 20 seconds, but we saw Remco Evenepoel throw an attack with Landa on the front as he's trying to drop Jonas Vingegaard, that's sitting second on the general classification. Jonas Vingegaard's locked onto the back wheel. Remco Evenepoel holding on as the Belgian rider for Soudal Quickstep's trying to move up a spot here on the general classification, but Jonas is having none of it. Never helping out with Remco Evenepoel, but always locked onto his wheels. Remco Evenepoel trying to do damage control to Tadej Pogačar or trying to do damage to Jonas Vingegaard. Take your pick. Right now, we're coming under the 2 kilometer banner though, 1.9. We'll see Jorgensen look over his shoulder. Tadej Pogačar Pogačar, the Slovenian from UAE Team Emirates, the #1 bike racer in the world on the butterfly effect, has caught Matteo Jorgensen from Visma bike and then leaves him immediately as he throws in his attack. Jorgensen can't follow it. The kid's had no bottles on his bike for over 10 kilometers. We'll call it 12 at this moment, as Matteo Jorgensen, seeing the gap there to the Slovenian Tadej Pogačar extend out. Tadej Pogačar is going under 1 kilometer to go. He knows he's going to win today's stage 19 of the Tour de France, and so do we. If you're sitting on the Chesterfield, you kind of knew at 2 kilometers to go, at 2 kilometers into the race, that Tadej Pogačar was going to win it. Now, 1 kilometer to go, you know for sure he's going to win. 500 meters, 400 meters to go. He's still looking just over his back to make sure that Jorgensen's nowhere there. Comes up to the last 100 meters here, starts to celebrate, arms out, does the little wings out to the sides, each side, and then the big time bow here to take stage 19 Tour de France victory, his 4th stage at the 24 Tour de France. We look behind him, Jorgensen across the line about 20-25 seconds behind Tadej Pogačar, 3rd on the stage. Simon Yates from Jayco Lula round out the podium. Carapaz will come through for 4th. Remember, Richard Carapaz put himself in the KOM jersey going over the 2nd climb here on today's stage 19. So he couldn't just sit up because Tadej Pogačar's gaining maximum KOM points. So Carapaz had to go all the way to the line for 4th. We look further back as we're coming into the last few 100 meters. We see Remco Evenepoel throw an acceleration on Jonas Vingegaard. He sits back down. He looks over his shoulder. Jonas Vingegaard gives him the little like, I'm not coming through. This is the Remco Evenepoel show. If you want to try to move up to 2nd place on the general classification, Remco Evenepoel throws in one more acceleration. Jonas Vingegaard finishes solid on his wheel. And that's going to wrap us into the top 6 places here on stage 19 of the Tour de France. But they lose 1 minute, 45 seconds there about on Tadej Pogačar. Now, Tadej Pogačar, what are you going to do later when we're talking about stage 20 of the Tour de France? And how did I tactically like your ride here on stage 19? I loved it. And when I back you up 2 stages, when Tadej Pogačar was attacking on stage 17, going with that ridiculous attack down the descent and that soft finish of 3.8 kilometers up to the line where they had Christophe Laporte up there, and we had Tis Benoot up there, and they had Wout van Aert in that group originally, I told you that was a knucklehead move. That was a knucklehead move. There was no reason for Tadej Pogačar to be tacking 2 stages ago on Jonas Vingegaard to gain nothing. Today, to ride your whole team on the front like he did, absolutely loved it. It's the same tactic I would have done because he wants to rub some salt in the wound from Visma bike. He's lost 2 Tour de France's already, 2 Tours de France, let me fix it, and he's lost those already from Visma bike, and every time he's lost them, he's had to hear about how Jonas Vingegaard's the better climber once you get into the heat and the bigger, longer mountain stages. Well, at the 24 Tour de France, as I told you in the past, Tadej Pogačar was always dropping in form, not Jonas Vingegaard getting better. But of course, Tadej Pogačar losing form and bonking. Well, he seems to have figured it out in the 24 Tour de France. And if you start a stage like 19 with UAE team members drilling it in the first 500 meters, you know if you're sitting on the Chesterfield, they want to win the Tour de France stage 19 for certain. That's what Tadej Pogačar did. So you start the stage with the ideal of winning it. If you have teammates that are dropping or feeling bad, you can change that plan. Tadej Pogačar can always abort that plan if he's got less teammates, or if his legs aren't coming around, he can abort the plan. But you know when they're holding the gap at 1 minute, 2 minutes, and then holding it to a tight 4 minutes with their whole team blowing up the field back there, there was really only 20, 35 guys left. When Niels Palet was pulling early, there was only 20 guys left on the final climb when it started, and Tadej Pogačar reduced it down to 1 guy with his attack, caught of course, Jorgensen with 1.9 kilometer to go and solo for this stage. So if your legs are feeling good all day, of course you win stage 19. Now up on the podium, Tadej Pogačar said Visma bike's whole plan was to try to win today's stage, but I took that. That's his words, not mine. So that's where Tadej Pogačar again is rubbing some salt into the wound there from Visma bike. Now Jonas Vingegaard, tip of the hat. You have been spectacular. God bless the cycling gods here for fixing you up and getting you ready for the 24 Tour de France, because you have been amazing. Without you in this year's Tour de France, it would have been nowhere near as exciting as it has been. But after stage 19, we know the general classification's wrapped up, because the Slovenian Tadej Pogačar never once had a bad day, unless you want to count stage 11 where he bonked a little bit and Jonas Vingegaard won that stage. That was probably the only bad moment that Tadej Pogačar had, but he rescued that moment, stayed on the general classification, and with the exception of stage 11 of the Tour de France, well, Tadej Pogačar has fixed his bad moments in Grand Tours so far throughout 19 stages of the 24 Tour de France. 1 more stage left, and just like he said on the interview afterwards, after today's stage 19, He says he wasn't thinking about trying to win tomorrow's stage. They would just enjoy riding through where he lives here down in Nice, where he lives from Monaco, so he's familiar with the roads, to enjoy the roads, and then, of course, focus on the individual time trial. Remco Evenepoel has thrown a little bit of salt in the wound, too, because he says Tadej Pogačar is the best rider here at the Tour de France, but him and Jonas Vingegaard are on the same page. Went from a little bit change from what it's been in the earlier stages of the Tour de France to now. Remco Evenepoel is on par with Jonas Vingegaard. I got to agree with them, and he looked better than Jonas Vingegaard in today's stage. One more mountain stage left. Jonas Vingegaard's got to hold on to Remco Evenepoel so he can round up second and keep that time when we come into the individual time trial. Because Remco Evenepoel said in his interview he wants to win the individual time trial to get a second stage here at the Tour de France. Now, can he beat the Slovenian Tadej Pogačar, or can Tadej Pogačar win tomorrow's stage that he says he won't race for? I think they should. Why not? It's the last stage of the Tour de France. Last mountain stage, of the Tour de France. Why not take it? Individual time trial, why not take that too? Tadej Pogačar's got 4. Why not go for 6 stages here? If you're the Slovenian Tadej Pogačar, I loved your tactics today. Tip of the hat. Why not go for the stage tomorrow? Like and subscribe. I'll see you guys on the next episode here of the Butterfly Effect for stage 20 of the Tour de France.